Oh, wait. Welcome to another episode of the Pedestrian Podcast. Joining myself, Nate the Great, Stuart Court, is Mr. Adam Nathan. How are we, sir?
Stuart, I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous. We've had, in the last 6 months, some big guests. We've had Loafer, we've had Cage, we've had Doug Baldwin, of all people. And now we're getting like Mr. 2021 join us today on the show. And I can't control myself, Stuart. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm shitting it.
As always, it is good to get to hear and speak to one of our regulars, one of our pals from the Athletic and the Seahawks man-to-man podcast. As Adam said, Mr. 2021 himself, Michael-Shawn Dugar. How are we, sir?
Man, you guys have lowered the bar here to get me on, and that's a heavy hitters. Those are people I haven't even had on the show, man. I haven't had Doug, haven't had Lofa text me back, hit him twice for something like last year. So, and you guys are moving on up. It is great to see.
Yeah, man. This time last week, you were breaking the Shaquille Griffin news 20 seconds before Ian Rappaport, I'm sure.
Yeah, man, that stuff doesn't matter to like anyone else but journalists, but it does matter a ton to us. I mean, like when companies evaluate a writer, they look at your ability to break news, right? Like if you have that stuff on your resume, you're in a different tier of writer, particularly in the NFL, where there's only we can count them all in our hands: Tom Pelissero, Mike Garafolo, Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport. That's about it.
Yeah.
You know, Diana Rossini every once in a while, Josina Anderson every once in a while. And Field Yates gets a lot of transactions, but I really just named a bunch of people from NFL Network and ESPN, right, is the gist of that. So if you're not in that little bubble where you got a machine behind you, basically doing what Josina's doing, independent, that's hard work. And like you said, I only got it probably 30 seconds before Schefter and Rappaport. But that 30 seconds is big, man, because for those 30 seconds, they got to cite me. Bleacher Report has to cite me and Yahoo and whoever else. Then I take that to the bosses. Like, yo, this is what I bring. I can get a tweet out faster than Schefter. So
I mean, but joking aside, I read an article with Schefter a couple of years ago, and he has a points system for every player that's going in free agency, and he counts his points versus Rappaport. I swear to God, there's an article on ESPN from maybe 2 or 3 free agencies ago, and they have a point system. And each player as you go down. So I don't know who the number one free agent would be, but I mean, Shaq's probably 10th this offseason going.
Yeah, that was probably that's also makes you feel really dope about it, because it wasn't, and this is no shade to Nick necessarily, but I didn't break the Nick Bellore extension. All right. Or that was a re-signing, and no shade to Nick, but fullback, low profile player, whereas Shaq was probably one of the top 30 free agents available. Yeah. Right. Like that is a bigger, deal. So yeah, that one felt dope. Still, I wish I'd have got more. I wish I'd have got the Chris Carson deal. I wish I'd have got, there's another one, Ethan's deal, but baby steps. It's really hard to get those.
You were doing your own show during the Chris Carson news when that broke, I think.
Yeah. But even then I was able to confirm it in 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. But I wish 60 seconds before that I'd have got the text. Even if I didn't, or the call, even if I didn't respond because I was on my own show, it would have been nice to just get the heads up and know that I at least had it beforehand. But it's all right. And like I said, no one cares about that stuff other than journalists. But if you're in journalism, that matters a lot to you. And I've explained that to some players and agents before, because some of them legitimately don't know, especially the newer agents or something. Like players for sure, like, oh, really? Sure, I'll just tell you then, but it's just you don't know, and they don't know until you break it down for them.
There's some earlier where someone said that Rosenhaus, Todd France, 6-7 agents have a quarter of the NFL player stock. So they have 320 players between them. There's only 1,300 in the league. It's
wow,
insane.
Someone put that stat out there. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, every deal that broke Monday, the Monday of first day of free agency, was Rosenhaus. Rosenhaus had every deal. It was everything that Schefter and Rapp had was per Drew Rosenhaus. It was insane how many deals he had. And that shows you how stacked the deck is against everyone who's not part of these NFL Network, ESPN machines. So like, and there's a lot of writers who are like, and I understand. I'm just like, man, screw that. I'm not about to be chasing down these scoops 30 seconds before somebody else tweets it. And I understand that too. I get it. I think it's a lot easier and probably better on mental health to, like, if you can get them, but do it so you can actually have an article with it as well. And it'd be something where you really like whoever the dude was in Spokane who broke that Mike Iupati was retiring. Like, clearly, there was an interview with Mike Iupati. Iupati played football up there, kind of where Spokane is. And it was, I think, the guy who broke Phillip Rivers' retirement, I think, was at the San Diego Union Tribune. I want to say, like, stuff like that is probably like better and more fun because it's also like, you're getting more traffic to an actual story, not just a third-party app in Twitter. And you actually are like, it's the culmination of like a relationship that you have built somehow. You know, Philip had one with that writer, I'm sure, and then Mike probably had one with the Spokane newspaper or the writer or something. Like, those are probably more fulfilling, I think. But it's still fun to chase down the breaking news too.
Yeah, when I saw that Iupati and it was Spokane, I thought it might be your man Theo who was breaking it, because obviously he covered it at Idaho, didn't he, back in the day?
Yeah, that was Theo's first interview, I want to say, as a college kid, because Theo went to Idaho as well, and so he was there with Mike at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was someone at Theo's paper. Now that's bugging me. I don't know who it was, but yeah, like I think stuff like that would be dope. Like, to use an example, if KJ was to, instead of play, like, retire this year, instead of just having the tweet that he's doing it, like, if we were to sit down for 20 minutes and then it gets announced through an article, that'd be dope. Doper than just having, the tweet. So, hey, KJ, if you, like.
He listens, don't worry.
Yeah.
Well, Doug Baldwin apparently listens, which is what we found out for last week. It'll be an interesting few weeks, though, with several at this point. We'll get all the main topic, obviously, one main topic of all. On that Shaq bit, you reported as well that the Seahawks were in that hunt up until the final few dollar signs were added. That felt a surprise. Should it have been one?
I was definitely surprised to see that they were still involved towards the end, because I knew what the number would be, and I was subtly trying to hint that to people, like, because I know we just had Joe Fan on our show today, and one of the questions I asked Joe was, why do Seahawks fans hate Shaquille Griffin? Because, like, if you like my mentions in particular, and apparently Joe's too, there's a lot of like good riddance on like the Shaq thing. Not just because someone else paid him, but it was like legit, like, no, we didn't want you no matter really what the deal was. It was very strange. But I knew, like, I knew it didn't really matter what Seahawks fans thought of Shaq. 25-year-old cornerbacks with a Pro Bowl on their resume get paid. That's just how it is. I don't care if the dude killed somebody. Like, that's just kind of how it works. I think it was kind of hard for me to grasp at first. And I talked to people about the cornerback market and looked around and started crunching numbers and projecting salaries and looking at the comps for Shaq. Like, he's got a lot of advanced comps that look like Marcus Peters, Kyle Fuller, Byron Jones. Byron Jones, who got like 17 million. So like it wasn't that surprising he got paid. But I knew that if he was going to be in the 14 million a year, for Seattle to be down to the wire, they would have had to at least been competitive. They didn't offer 14 because he probably would have just stayed. But that probably tells me they were in the 10, 11 range, which is that sounds about right, because that would mean that they value. That means they value Shaq the same way they did like Jay Reed last year. I think he got 2 and 23 or something like that. So that's probably, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they offered that same deal to Shaq, 2 and 23.5 or whatever. But the problem is that Seattle's going to run into anytime they go after free agents is the length of the deals. I don't think Seattle's given out a 3-year deal since Kerry Williams. And so if you're not willing to, a lot of these guys in free agency, they know this is my only time hitting free agency for the most part, like hitting it big. So they want to get paid now. They want to get stability. They want security. They don't want to be on these prove-it deals. There's a lot of stress and anxiety that comes with being on a prove-it deal. I know we throw it out there all willy-nilly, but like, you're one ankle turning the wrong way from not proving anything, right? Then you could be out of the league. Just like, Justin Britt made it back in, but like, he was out for a whole year after turning his knee. He was starting center on a decent team, and then boom, the knee goes the wrong way. Then he could be out of the league. So that's always going to be Seattle's problem. And that was probably, I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine that was the problem. At least one of them, not just the money, but like the length.
Yeah.
Jacksonville got 3 years on that. Was Seattle willing to go 3 again? They haven't gone 3 with anybody. Even look at some of these deals. Chris Carson's got reported as 3. No, it's 2. It's, Benson Mayo's got reported as like 4, I think. It's just 2. Even this Kerry Hyder guy got reported as 3. No, it's really just 2. Everything's a 2-year deal. Puna, Nick Ballore, like all these deals are 2-year deals. So if that, the fact that they were in it surprised me a little bit, but the fact that they ended up losing didn't surprise me that much.
Is it too easy to read that that's a lack of confidence in what Shaq has left behind at cornerback? Because obviously it's Trey, brought in Keller Witherspoon, Dunbar might be back, and then it's DJ Reed, really. It's not a lot left in the cupboard now Shaq has gone back to Florida.
Yeah, so there's 2 sides to it. Like, them being involved that deep into the negotiations is like a sign that they really are a little bit worried about what they have behind Shaquille. But the unwillingness to go far enough to retain him is very similar to, not similar, but it means they view Shaq similarly as they do basically all free agents, which is if you're on the market, something's wrong, right? For the most part, that's kind of the way Seattle looks at it. The something wrong has varying degrees, whether it's your knee or your attitude or your performance, inconsistency, whatever. You're on the market. That means the team who knew the most about you didn't want you anymore. Right. Now, sometimes that team is just stupid. That just can be how it is. Sometimes that team is a genius. Sometimes the team is like, all right, we'll let somebody else go pay you 5 years or something like that. So that tells me that Seattle told me 2 things in the pursuit of him to the end. It was that, oh man, we actually do kind of got to make a push here because we ain't got a lot of options behind this guy at a very premium position. We don't have draft capital. We don't have a lot of money, and there aren't a lot of options. He's the best corner on the market. And it also told me that when they eventually bowed out, it's like, there's still a world where you're too rich for our blood. Like, we aren't that desperate. Like, something is up. And that's fair. I think for the most free agents, that's the case. It's probably even the case with someone like Corey Linsley, who was just first team All Pro, and Green Bay was like, see ya. Let's pay this running back. Now, either Green Bay is stupid or something is wrong. I lean towards Green Bay being stupid because they also then, gave up their All-Pro linemen to pay a running back. That's just, your checks and balances are off there. The same team that spent the first-round pick on a quarterback and a second-round pick on a running back. Yeah, to then have your quarterback go win MVP, and then you pay your other running back. So, but that's a good example of like, oh man, is something wrong? You could think that about Jack Conklin last year. Like, oh man, like, why don't the Titans want him if he's that good? So the Seahawks, I think, viewed Shaq as one of those guys like, it's not enough, whatever it is. Probably not an attitude thing, probably inconsistency thing, which would be fair. His career was very up and down. But they are in a bit of a tough spot without him, and they realize that too, I can tell.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was listening to I think KJR yesterday, and they were saying that, Mike Clay said the Seahawks have a top 5 roster and you're going into the draft and there's not gaping holes. And I suppose that is one way you can look at it, because there are bodies in every position. But I look at Shaq Griffin leaving and Akello comes in. So yeah, it's a body, but it's a body. And I look at Carlos Dunlap leaves, Mayoa comes back, and a guy called Kerry comes in who I've never heard of, who is a body. And I just wonder if, like, the pass rush, you could say, well, they've got 2 guys there. They had 2 guys last year. Where do we look at this roster as a whole? Because as far as I can tell, there's not holes in the sense of there's players missing, but I'm not sure that the people plugging those holes are necessarily of the caliber that we need them to be going forward.
Yeah, I think the running back room's a wash. I think it's literally all the same guys. And then quarterback's a wash. And then the O-line's probably a plus, which is probably what Mike has. Tight end room is probably might be a push. That can go either way. I just to be safe, I'd probably call that a push, and because it's just a version of Greg Olsen you got. Mm-hmm. And you got prime Greg Olsen, and clearly it's got worse. But 35-year-old Greg or however old he was versus Gerald Everett at like 25 or whatever. It's probably a push. D-line's probably a push. I mean, if you swap and carry for Carlos, which is really all they did, and then lose, you lose Demontre and Shaquem. They can honestly just bring those two dudes back. D-line might be a push, or maybe just a smidge. The problem is, I think linebacker is a big step down, and then corner is a big step down. I think that's so. I don't know about top 5 roster. In the NFC, it might be a top 5 roster, which is not like the worst thing in the world, but I still think teams like Green Bay have much better rosters, because when people look at roster, and this is not Mike Clay doing that, he looks legitimately at the whole roster. He'll look at your punter situation, like he's very thorough, so I'm not talking about him. But they look at your roster, and we tend to ignore the offensive line. Like I don't know how many people consider Green Bay having a stacked roster because they're O-line. I do. That makes all the difference. Look at the Super Bowl. I consider a team like Pittsburgh to be stacked in that way because their O-line is great. It doesn't matter if Big Ben's 50. If you can pass protect for the 50-year-old, he'll get it to his guys. And I think their skill positions are good too, and I always trust their defense for the most part. But when you got a line, your team is really, really, like Tampa Bay probably has a top 5 roster. Kansas City, I'm not sure. Baltimore, I'm not sure. I think they had some lineman injuries, last year. So I think there are holes, but I think you can make an argument. This is probably what Mike would do, that they can manage at just about every spot, with the exception of the receiver. Like that's a clear hole. Like it's a hole. But you could also then argue that if they're just going to be a 12 personnel team, your third guy is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, but that's where Gerald, I think you said on your pod last week that Gerald Everett's now the second highest paid receiver, and he's not going to get the second most amount of targets.
No, not even close. Yeah, not even close. I've been cautioning people, and this is just me being really pessimistic, probably because of all the digging I did on the Russ story that we had in February. We did so much reporting on that it was really hard not to come away incredibly pessimistic about the future of the team. And one of the things that I really learned is that whoever is OC does not matter. It's not that it's completely irrelevant. Shane is a different guy than Brian, and Brian's a different guy than Darrell Bevel, but it's irrelevant in that, like, and I said this on the show too, on the Seahawks Man, it was like, every time you work for someone else, your job in some form or fashion is largely to do what the boss says, whatever he says to do. Now, in some cases, you have some autonomy. I'm sure like Wade Phillips had a lot of autonomy when he was Sean McVay's defensive coordinator. I'm sure he was like, yo, Wade, do your thing. He was like, yeah, cool. And it sounds like in both cases of Brian Leftwich and Todd Bowles in Tampa, they have some autonomy as well, because Bruce just loves those guys so much and trusts them to kind of do their thing. It's still Bruce's vision, but like Todd's so good at creating havoc and things like that. I think another team like that is Baltimore. Clearly, their defensive coordinator is just like, yo, create havoc and we'll figure it out. So there's some autonomy there. I don't get the sense there's a lot of autonomy at all at the coordinator positions here. So if I think that, like, that's the premise I'm operating under, then the talent itself that you bring in has been irrelevant to me. And even if you were not irrelevant, that's a bad word, but it's not a one-to-one, just you bring someone over. Like, I think we've seen that, if that was the case, Percy Harvin would have shined. If that was the case, Jimmy Graham would have been all pro. If that was the case, Josh Gordon would have spent 5-6 weeks here and only had like 7 catches. Like it's not because of how Seattle is, when you come here, unless you're like a lineman or a defensive lineman, unless you come here, and when you come here as a skill guy, it just doesn't transfer. It just really doesn't. I guess it's mostly an offensive thing more than anything. But yeah, it just doesn't. And I've learned that that's just because it's not, you're fitting pieces in around here, or you're asked to kind of what's the word I want to conform more than you are just to to be yourself. And not to say that they don't do special things for like Jimmy or like they did for Percy or whatever, but I just don't. They've lost the benefit of the doubt for me. So if Gerald Everett's the best tight end in yards after catch, I don't expect him to be here. That's just because that's just not how it works over here. Tyler Lockett, I looked it up the other day, averaged as many yards after catch per reception as N'Keal Harry in 2020. And it's just like Tyler was an all-pro return guy. There is no way he's that bad with the ball in his hands. But I think that's the system. Same thing with Doug. Doug could make anybody miss. He could make a bullet miss, but it didn't naturally come off in the scheme. So I think whether it's Gerald or whoever else they bring in, whatever coordinator they bring in, when you don't have the autonomy to really kick it how you want to kick it around here, it's hard for me to just like project all this awesomeness. Even if awesomeness comes, I just can't project it. I have to see
it. Is that also why, obviously, third receiver here, is that also why David Moore leaving is kind of, he's seen that an opportunity to get more opportunities in an offense? Because obviously Curtis Daniels left Carolina. He's going to get more opportunities than he would have 12 months ago in that offense, isn't he? Because they're probably going to throw the ball if they invest in a quarterback.
That's a tough one, because if I was David, if I was Chris, or any of these 7th-round picks, I'm chasing the money. I don't care who's throwing to. I don't care if it's Taysom Hill, Tim Tebow, doesn't really matter. 7th-round pick, that's just such a struggle. We don't talk about anxiety. You're never guaranteed. You're never comfortable, right? Like LJ Collier, Jordan Brooks, Rashad Penny. Like, I know they'll tell you they have an underdog mentality, and perhaps they do. But they're in the back of their mind, they have to know the sense of security there as a first-round pick. It's just not there when you're a 7th-round pick. You're one injury away from you never playing in the NFL again, right? That's just how it works. So for David, if I was him, I don't know this for sure, I would have just chased the money as soon as I could. I mean, look at this last year. David signed an RFA tender for $2.1 million. And they figured that was too expensive for him. To pay him $2 million and said, no, dude, we need you on a minimum deal this year. Like, that's rough. So as soon as somebody offers me some bread, I don't really care what the situation is. I need to get this money, because you're already going to get an opportunity because they paid you. So you're already confident you'll ball out no matter what. It's like, let me get the money, as well. Because that 7th-round pick stuff, it can be a struggle. Like, those guys are living in poverty, but they're not as living as lavish as a lot of people would think just because they're in the NFL.
So autonomy, opportunity, all this stuff. I'm looking around my living room here and there's an enormous elephant in here, because the thing that kicked this whole offseason off was you guys in February writing the piece that traveled the world in a minute about Russell Wilson. And, those are two words that you could probably look at him and say, well, that's one of the reasons why he's not happy. And from what I can tell from listening to your show and reading your stuff, there doesn't appear to have been that much of an effort to bridge the gap. And, September seems 6 months away, but we all know how time flies. And all of a sudden it's going to be July and camp and press conferences. It feels to me like some stuff needs to start getting moving on that and repair that relationship. Or there still hasn't been a restructure of the contract. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think some egos need to be checked on both sides too. Like, it's not just maybe we did. I thought we were pretty fair on like presenting both sides, but I could see how some of it come off as like this. The organization needs to do everything to make Russell Wilson happy, which they should. If they're not going to trade him, like why anger him for the sake of angering him? Especially if he tells you what's angering him, fix it. But I think there's some ego checking on both sides. It's not just like, I don't default to, well, Russ, if you want to be Tom, get paid like Tom. It's like, well, no. Pay him as good as he is. Don't pay him like Tom. Pay him, if I'm the best, pay me like I'm the best, or top 3 or whatever. Pay me accordingly, and then work the money around. If you got $8 million to give to Luke Jokel in any given season, then you can go get other linemen, right? It's not about Russ's salary. It's a really bad argument. But I thought one thing was very interesting, and perhaps he just didn't have time to elaborate, but like Russ on the DP show, Dan Patrick, talking about how he should have more say in personnel, which is a slippery slope. I don't know about that. But like, one thing he cited was like, yeah, you play in these Pro Bowls and you know who the good players are. And it was just, in my head, I'm like, okay, so what else do you have besides playing in the Pro Bowl, right? Like, all the Pro Bowl players are good. That's you're not doing any advanced scouting there. You can't just come to John Schneider and be like, hey, look, I played with all these good guys in Orlando. And it's like, duh, you were at the Pro Bowl. Now go try to trade for Orlando Brown. I bet you the Ravens hang up on you. Like that's why we haven't gotten guys, like that. So I would like to see if I was Russell, I would ask him like, what would you do differently? Because I understand the lack of faith. He doesn't have faith in them to build alignment around him. Spoiler, I have a piece coming out on Thursday about looking back at all the lineman transactions they've made in the free agency and the draft, and they're atrocious. They spent money on the wrong guys. They were penny pinching, and they drafted terribly. At O-line since Russ was named the starter. So I cut off 2012 because they didn't know he was a starter. So since 2013, that had been terrible. So I see why he doesn't trust them. But it's also, if I'm the organization, it's like, who's to say you'd be any better at this? How much tape do you watch? How much pro personnel scouting do you do? Who would you have drafted differently? Just every dude from Wisconsin, which actually is not a terrible strategy because Wisconsin turns out. If you only drafted Wisconsin linemen and like Iowa linemen, and then linemen from like Bama and LSU, you'd probably be okay. Like your line would actually be probably pretty decent. But so I think in that regard, like Russ has to give a little bit too. But they do as well, man. If your quarterback says, I want to be more involved in the offense. Yes, he touches the ball literally every play. Being at odds with him is a net negative. Whether you are ultimately right in your heart of hearts, being at odds with Russell on that is a net negative. It just is. It doesn't do anyone any good. Pete can feel in his bones that running the ball is better. If your quarterback is not on board with that, it's not going to be a successful strategy. It's just not, because it's his job to get you into some of those runs. It's his job to control the tempo, right? It's his job to like lead. And how can he lead if he's at odds with you? So I think that's where they have to give a little bit too. They probably, like Pete, I know for sure, is like, we're gonna run this rock. We did this. We got it. That's what we're gonna do. Balance. Yes. It's like, that's fine if your quarterback is on board. If he's not, relationships matter. So I think like it's not enough to explode in 2021. I think that what people forget, and maybe we didn't do a great job of illustrating this, is like Seattle has kind of mastered functioning in chaos. I don't know if I told the story on here, but I was in a locker room one day, and this was in 2019, I'm gonna say. And I think it was at the time that the homie Master on Bleacher Report had did that interview with Percy Harvin, and he talked about the fight before the Super Bowl. So it was like a topic. I think Cliff had talked about it on KJR as well, because that's when he was working for the time. So I was in the locker room. I was talking to a guy who was on the Super Bowl team, and I was talking to him about the Percy fight and the getting thrown in the trash bin and all that stuff. And he was like, dude, man, that team was ridiculously crazy. He said, look around. He had me pivot around the locker room. He said, how many guys do you think in here are like crazy? I think are ready to fight. That's what he said. I looked around. I was like, okay, one, him. And I got like 3 or 4. I'm not gonna say who I said, but I think one of them was Quentin Jefferson for sure, because I had seen him try to go kill a fan in Jacksonville. So I was like, yeah, he's ready. Q Jeff's a good dude though, but I was like, that was an angry man. And then he was like, all right, cool. The player from the Super Bowl team was like, yeah, okay, cool. We had about 10 guys like that on the Super Bowl team, and it was their best season in franchise history, right? So like we made it happen. And then even with the Richard Sherman stuff, remember that article that came out by Wickersham and ESPN in 2017? That article came out like May of 2017. The lead of it, the opening, is from, I want to say, a practice prior to the Super Bowl, maybe like 2014 or something, maybe after the Super Bowl. It's from like 2014. So really, his beef had been going on for like 3 years, and no one knew, and they won all of these games and went to the Super Bowl, and we're fine. And they've had other fights and stuff like that. My point is a long-winded way of saying, just because it's really bad beef doesn't mean they can't coexist, because that's also the culture that Pete has established. And John, guys can fight and hate each other. I've heard guys have not even talked to each other for months in that building. Guys in the same position group will not speak to each other for weeks and weeks during the season, and they'll go win by 20. Right? Like that's just kind of what they do there. So I don't necessarily think the world is going to end in 2021 because of this Russ beef, but it does something that needs to be addressed. Just like the Sherm stuff needs to be addressed, and they eventually cut him. Same thing with Earl, all this other stuff. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying 2021. I expect all the main characters to still be here, but the point of our article is that everything's not okay. Whether that ends in 2021, 2022, or 2023, fix it, guys, because eventually this will start to blow up in people's faces.
So who would be at the core of that change from 10 guys who are going to go swinging for the fences at everyone who crosses them to 2 or 3 guys? Because obviously Mike Roberts on Joe Fans pod over the weekend, and he says that Joe asked him if he spoke to Russell Wilson still, and he said no. So would the quarterback be someone who'd be changing that kind of deal, or is it again autonomy of the head coach?
I think that's more of a locker room thing, and I tell people that all the time, especially when it pertains to Sherm and Mike B. I don't think they were locker room cancers. That's a really bad label for them. Guys in that locker room love them. Not everyone, of course, but they were largely loved in their locker room. Especially, man, like guys on defense love Mike B. Man, Mike B was fun. He was a competitor, and then he just cared about other people. And he obviously bared that out in multiple ways before he was eventually traded. But like, you could tell Mike cared about other people, right? And that comes across. I mean, genuinely, for the most part, the guys in your position group, they can tell if you're like an asshole or not pretty quick. Like, because they're with you so much. Y'all in group chats, y'all watching film on Tuesdays together. Like, y'all going to each other's daughter's 1-year-old birthday party. Like, they can tell. Like, so I would say that most of those beefs were with front office. I mean, look at what Doug told you guys about Marshawn.
Yeah.
They loved that man. He was damn near a deity, right? But he also marched to the beat of his own drum. But who is that most like annoying to? The people who try to set the tune of the band, and that's the front office, right? Like Marshawn had his own rules. Like, I don't want to get on this bus. You guys are going to Minnesota. I'm gonna chill. I don't care if it's a playoff game. Like that. I mean, that may have set some teammates off too, but like, you get the point. I really think that there's a dynamic there. I think, Adam, this was your question to Doug that I thought was the answer is yes. Doug didn't think about it this way, but like, they've created a culture where be you. Whoever you are will embrace you. Unless you get to pushing back a little bit too much on us, then you got to go. I liken it to, I'm a big movie guy, you guys know. So I liken it to the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. There's an underlying theme in I, Robot about like the dangers of artificial intelligence, which is really what that movie is about. They created this, artificial intelligence to put in these robots. And the robots eventually evolved to the point where like, wow, you humans are dumb as hell and you are destroying this planet. So we will take over from here because we realize you guys are doing this wrong because we've evolved to the point of needing you. We are challenging the authority that created us. It's essentially what happened to the Seahawks as well, except Will Smith wasn't there to save the day. Maybe Russell's Will Smith in this, but like that's the analogy that I use. It's like, yes, they were empowered in a way that was like, hold on. There ultimately is a line with this empowerment, guys. You can't just be reading books in my meetings and telling me when we're going to throw the ball in the one, and flipping me off, on injury carts and things, and things like that. And now Russell's gotten to that point too, treated a certain way as like, you are special, you are different, you are a quarterback, Tell the Truth Monday doesn't fully apply to you. Okay, well, now you treat him like an extension of management. Now you get into year 9 and he's like, I want to control the roster. Well, you should have saw that coming. Right? You built this. He didn't get drafted 75th overall when personnel control. You created the space for him to eventually evolve to wanting that, and along with your missteps. So I think the front office is, I don't know if blame is not the full word, but like their behaviors in reality, I mean, Pete created this culture that is what we're seeing, what we saw with Russell, or we saw with Sherm and Doug and Mike B and even Earl, to now what we're seeing from Russell. It's actually it's like I'm psychoanalyzing the whole team. It's kind of fun. But like, you really got to dig into the behind the scenes of it to understand it. When you do it, like, everything makes sense.
So we discussed exactly that 2 weeks ago with Rob and Jackson, in the sense that Russell's kind of the angel on the shoulder versus the devil on the shoulder that those other guys were. Russell's like the good guy that is following that same path of the empowerment. But With the other guys, there was no turning back. And eventually it ended up in losing those guys for way under market value at their best. So last week, we get the news that Chicago have offered 3 first-round picks and 2 players and a couple of thirds. And I guess rightly, everyone scoffs at that and says, well, no, it's Russell Wilson. He's worth much more than that. But given the track record that no player has been able to get back on track with the front office, is there a risk that we are having this conversation in 12 months' time thinking, shit, we got 2 first-round picks and I don't know, Miller from Chicago, and when we're grateful to get it?
There's a few issues with the trade proposal. I do get your point. I'll get to that. The problem with the trade proposal is it's in the NFC. So like right there,
I kind of feel more in general like that, the scoffing at, oh my God, 3 first-round picks, are you crazy? Like this could come back and really bite us in the ass in a year's time.
Yeah, no, that's the first thing is like NFC team problem, which that like every GM thinks about it. You look at some of these big trades, like they go not only in another division, they go to go into the AFC versus the NFC or whatever. The other issue there, and is like what I tweeted about it was like, man, that's actually probably the best Chicago can really present logistically, and it would get everyone in Seattle fired in a year, right? Like because you have a bunch of assets and no quarterback. You'd be the Jets, right? Like they have a ton of assets, a ton, right? But they say Adam Gase, get out, right? Because we stink. So I think that would be a very similar issue. But yeah, I do think there is something to the fact that like not only did they lose the Legion of Boom, a lot of those good guys, they didn't get anything for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got a 5th-round pick,
and Marcus
and
Johnson.
the receiver who never made the team, for Michael Bennett, you know, who subsequently got traded twice after that. So other teams did value him. So you could have marked the pricing up. Got nothing for Richard Sherman. Ridiculous. I will always contend that was stupid. Getting nothing for him was absolutely ludicrous. Getting nothing for Earl Thomas. Maybe they got a third because it was comp. I have to go look at that. So nothing immediate from Earl. Maybe they got a comp pick because he signed for so much.
I feel like they spent it.
They might. Maybe that's what they sent to the Jets. I'm not sure. Earl signed for so much and he played so many snaps and made the Pro Bowl in 2019 that Seattle was probably eligible for a comp pick, and that might have been what they used to trade up for Darrell Taylor. I'd have to go check all of that. But like at the time, like if you were before the 2018 season, you should have just traded him to Dallas for what Dallas was offering, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like in hindsight. So yeah, that is a risk in that next year after they like losing the divisional round to someone, we're right back here. Russ is still pissed. And this time he doesn't just go on the Dan Patrick show and the Ellen show. Now he's on like Oprah and First Take, and he's just everywhere, just going off about Pete Carroll, and he's using names this time. Maybe it's just worse. And yeah, now next year the Bears will still need a quarterback. So yeah, maybe it's the Bears again. Now they're like, well, now we're only offering 2, you know, and now you can get like whoever trash quarterback. Now you can have like Andy Dalton, you know, as well. It's like now Seattle, yeah, they'll have to sell for pennies on the dollar. The only reason that probably wouldn't happen is just because he still has the no trade and he still is under contract for a few more years. But yeah, there is a risk that we'll get like they'll have to put a red discount sticker on Russ before shipping him off, as opposed to shipping him off for like one of these deals doesn't seem great. But I still wouldn't trade him though, for what it's worth. Because again, no matter what the deal is, if you don't get a quarterback in return, everyone in Seattle gets fired 12 months later. I like stand by that pretty firmly.
Yeah. Elsewhere in free agency, back on that quickly, Gabe Jackson's was traded for a 5th-round pick. He's making $9.5 million currently in 2021. Is that something they can jig around like they kind of did with Carlos Dunlap when he come in?
Yeah, I've become somewhat of a salary cap expert in the last month. No, I'm not a salary cap, but I did do a story where, and this is on The Athletic, where I like mapped out 3 paths.
Mm-hmm. That was great.
Thank you. I spent so many days looking up contracts, comparing guys at certain ages with injury history, and it's really hard for O-linemen because the comps are hard. I can just go look at how many catches and whatever from trying to find a receiver comp for a contract. and how to structure the contract and then you got to look at what certain teams do. Seattle likes to structure their contracts a certain way where the future years vest the year before and blah, blah, blah. And like which teams do big signing bonuses. And then you have to factor in like the COVID year with the shrinking cap. But I did learn that and in that research, there's a million things you can do to flex the cap. Cap space legitimately is a myth. You can do whatever you want to fix the cap. You can give these guys all these dummy years. Now, I mean, most of the solutions involve pushing money down the road, which obviously can be a dangerous game. You can be like the Saints, right? But I mean, did the Saints really mess that up? They basically pushed money down the road for like 5 years, had one of the best rosters in the conference for about 5 years, kept getting hosed by stuff like the Minnesota Miracle and that no PI call against the Vikings, no PI call against the Rams, and then Drew Brees' arm fell off. We're like, they never really lost, I don't think, because their roster wasn't talented. You know, talent wasn't the issue. They just caught some bad breaks in a single elimination tournament. You know, that's just kind of how things go. So, but I think they're a really good case study. You can just push money down the side. You can always find there's loopholes. I think last year they were rumored to have like tried to trade for Clowney, but have someone else eat the money on it.
Yeah.
I forget. I think Pro Football Talk reported that. Like, you can do whatever you want. So with Gabe Jackson, you can give him some like huge deal. You can give him a 4-year extension on top of the 2 years he has. Void those 2 of those years. So really it's just a 2-year extension on top of the 2 years he already has. Give him a signing bonus. Spread that out over like 6 years. So his cap hit goes from like 9 to like 3, or like 2.5 like Chris Carson's is. Now you have to deal with that down the road, but like that's one way to drop a guy's cap hit down, like, and it's perfectly legal and it's not even that complicated to do, to be honest. You just got to be willing to eat the dead money later. So yeah, long-winded answer of saying, yeah, you can do so much stuff. There's never a reason. How do I want to put this? A team doesn't lose a guy because they cannot afford him. That never happens. Never. Mm-hmm. No. You can afford anyone. The Chiefs had $1 million in cap space and gave Patrick Mahomes $500 million. Like you can afford anyone you want. They had no cap space, found like $16 million for Sammy Watkins, and paid Chris Jones last year. The Bucs are doing it now. They've found ways to pay everyone when they didn't have any money. So, yes, to the Gabe Jackson, they can manipulate that, but just in the big picture, don't let any GM or coach or president or whatever owner tell you that they couldn't afford a guy. Bullshit. You could. You didn't want to mortgage the future for him, which is a different response than we couldn't afford him. You chose. Everything's a choice. Every time the Seahawks have not kept a guy, it is all. They could have paid. The Jags should have said, hey, this is $45 million for Shaq. All right, we'll give you 50. Could have. Structured it away. His cap hit's like $3 million. This year. They just chose not to. Everything is a choice. The Seahawks and a lot of other teams just choose not to pay guys.
So obviously this, to pull the curtain back a bit, this was supposed to be recorded 24 hours ago, and 25 minutes before we were jumping on, the Seahawks decided to get busy. So maybe if KJ and Carlos are going to come back to Seattle this next half an hour or so, is going to be when they do it.
Yeah, we got bad luck, man.
But also a lot of the deals that they've done, obviously Carson's back as well on one of those voidable contracts, and then even Kerry Hardy yesterday, it's every deal you can kind of look, well, that doesn't bode well for X in the first round, Y in the second round, does it? Like Penny, Collier, and Darrell Taylor have a tougher path to snaps than they did a week ago.
I think LJ and Darrell are probably still the road that I don't think got a ton tougher, because there were still other guys there. Like last year, they've lost actually all the defensive ends are gone, except for like LJ and Rasheem. Like at one point before bringing back Benson, they had lost Shaquem, DeMontre, Benson, Carlos, and Jonathan Bullard. Like everyone who rushed from the edge for them was gone. So I think Darrell, without like guys like Bullard there and Shaquem and what else did I just say? DeMontre. So I think Darrell's okay, LJ's okay, but I do think there is really no way to look at this if you're viewing it from Rashad Penny's standpoint. This is an indictment of what they think about him as a player. Like it really is just resigning Chris. That's just a fact. Daryl, I'm not sure. I think they just needed to, they just needed to just make a move. They needed more bodies. I can understand that. Kid ain't play last year. Makes sense. Even if you're really high on LJ, it doesn't hurt to have. You can never have too many pass rushers. That's one of those you can just load up on. I mean, you can make the argument for running backs, but like, man, this was supposed to be the year that like Rashad's your guy. Why isn't Rashad your guy? And not only is he not going to be your guy, even if you would exercise his 5th-year option as a first-round pick, he'd still spend the duration of his rookie contract as a backup. Like that is bad. That is really bad. Like independent of what I think or what you guys think about him, there's really no other way to slice it as extending Carson is an indictment on Rashad Penny. And maybe that's the right move to do since I think Chris is a better running back. I don't even think that's really relevant as much as like admitting that like, hey, this team is telling us it whiffed on its first-round pick. Would that be the first time they whiffed? No. But this would probably be the first time that they admitted it. It'd be like if they traded for a tackle while they had Jermaine Ifedi with 2 years left. They'd be like, oh, this guy stinks. They never even did that, and that was Ifedi. This year, they're like, yo, we like Rashad and everything, but if he's our number one guy, we can't do what we want to do. And that makes you wonder, like, if I was to ask the team, like, okay, then that means this was never going to work in the first place. If he's not built to do what you guys want to do offensively, like, did him having his knee repaired change that? Doubt it. So like, it was just honestly the Chris Carson deal. One of the effects of it is like, yep, the Seahawks blew another first-round pick for like the umpteenth time in the Schneider and Carroll era.
But it's also paying Carson is the same now as the same for drafting Penny in the first round, is because Pete is clearly still stung by how that position completely capitulated in 2017, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Like this all comes back around to that, and it's again the fact that he wants to be good at that Carson's been paid, isn't it?
Yeah, Pete's got to. I was looking at this with some of their transactions. They really overreact to injuries, and yeah, I think it's injuries. So you look at like Sheldon Richardson, it's because of the Malik McDowell injury. Dwayne Brown, it's because of the George Fant injury. There's a couple others in there, but like you look, I mean, even probably Carlos is probably related to the injuries to Bruce and Daryl, not being able to play, especially because I think Daryl was going to be a Leo, which is where I think Carlos is best suited. So, excuse me. And then, yeah, in 2017, they were just the worst. Chris got hurt. I think Thomas Rawls, man, they got hurt. Eddie Lacy got hurt. Everyone was hurt. And then you draft running back in the first round. It's a lot of overreactions, I think. But some of them I understood, especially the Dwayne Brown one. But this seems like that as well. Just another overreaction, especially at poor positions. Like, where was this overreaction? I would have rather seen, if I'm Seattle, all right, Richard Sherman tore his Achilles in 2017. Let's draft a corner in the first round. Like overreact. That might not have still been a great thing. I don't know how many great corners there were in that 2018 draft, but still, it's the idea. Oh, Earl broke his leg. Let's draft a safety in the first round, and I think they drafted Marquise Blair pretty high after Earl's injury. So there's something to that. But I mean, the point is, yeah, you're onto it. It's another overreaction by the team, and they've done a lot of that, whether it's overreacting to their bad draft picks or trying to overcorrect to bad draft picks. The Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams trades, as well as great as they are, as those two players, their reactions to bad drafting. That's what they are. Couldn't find a replacement for Cam, so now you have to spend 2 first-round picks and a third to get a guy and pay him like $18, $20 million. You couldn't find a replacement for Earl, so now you have to trade a fifth, to get Quandre. They're doing all these moves as a reaction for bad drafting, and it's I forget. I think I can't remember the dude's name over at Field Goals. I think his first name Brian, but he made the point that like the 2017 draft was really bad for this team. It set them up. It was so bad that it set them up to do all of these other overreactions and trades and moves. And now, like, we're starting to see the effects of all of that. We saw it right away with Malik, but now we're really seeing it long term, like how bad that draft was for the future of the franchise.
Yeah,
But it seems like we're seeing it with linebacker as well. I mean, they spent, they trade up for Cody Barton, and then they have already 30 odd million invested in Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. And with the first round pick, they go and get another linebacker. And I just wonder, like, Ponzi scheme would be an incredibly harsh way to look at everything. But I keep looking at this team and thinking they are spending a lot of new money to satisfy old issues. And eventually the whole house of cards comes tumbling down because you just can't make everything work. And I just wonder if in this year or next year is something going to come home to roost, because there's just, next year they have 22 players on the roster that are signed up. You can barely have a soccer game with that number of people, let alone field an American football team. And I just wonder, like, at some point, obviously there's the cap going up apparently in TV money or whatever, but everyone's going to have that money to spend. So it's just going to extrapolate up and down for what players can get. And I just wonder if that, they've spent so much new money going off, trying to look after bad old money. Are they going to end up screwing themselves if they need to pay their superstars as well and be in a position where they just can't field enough of a team to make it all work?
Well, I don't think they'll have a problem paying guys that need to be paid. I mean, even look at their roster now. It's what, DK, Jamal, which there'll be room for. Like, how many guys do they have on rookie deals who are ballers? Yes, DK, Jamal.
That's it.
They gotta have somebody else.
I mean, it's early, but Lewis could. But we're like,
oh yeah. No, a good lineman you got to keep. You got to keep. That's just. I mean, looking back at some of the deals they made, I was too young in the NFL writing business. I mean, I was literally still covering high school at the time. I probably would have been far more critical of the Max Unger and Jimmy Graham deal if I was like a veteran NFL reporter. Mm-hmm. Just because if you got all-pro lineman, do not trade him. Do not. That is just no. Don't. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you're trading for. Pass rusher, unless you're getting a quarterback, that would be my only. Obviously, do that. But the trouble they're going to run into is there is only so much you can do to mask bad drafting. Mm-hmm. There really is. That is what they're going to run into. Like someone, I was talking about the 2018 draft on Twitter because I think someone had mentioned it. And it's a bit of a mixed bag, though it looks pretty pedestrian, no pun intended at the moment. But like someone asked me about the 2019 draft, and I went and looked at it, and I was like, I'll reserve some judgment on like Marquise because I legitimately have not seen him play enough to know if he's good or bad one way or the other. But aside from that, I'm pretty confident in saying that was a bad draft. Yeah, like that's just. I mean, DK is great. And then everything after that was iffy at best. So, like, that's the issue. That's what comes to bite you eventually. And that's what also helped the Saints out in reverse. Not reverse, but like the inverse of it, I guess, is they nailed their 2017 draft. The Rams did too. Mm-hmm. What all these dudes from the Rams who were nice from that 2017 draft. Like, even I think Gerald Everett is from there. Josh Reynolds from there too. Cooper Kupp. Yeah. I think one of their safeties. Maybe John Johnson. They just hit. That 2017 draft was very good for them, and for the Saints, it was ridiculously good. They got that tackle. They got Marshawn Lattimore. They got Alvin Kamara. Which did so well, and it set them up for the future, so they could push all that money down the road because they also had contributors on rookie deals. If you need contributors on these rookie deals, the way the league is set up, you can't just keep missing on fourth round picks and then overcorrecting with veterans who you then have to pay. Like, yeah, it's great that you were able to give up a fifth round pick for Quandre Diggs, but like, if you'd have just hit on a fifth round pick, you'd have a guy making $800K versus the $5 million you're paying Quandre. $5 million is not a ton, but it's a lot more than $800K. So more than anything, their whiffs in the draft are going to come back to. We're going to start to see with that 2019 class too. Like, watch the positions that they have to try to fill from that. I mean, look, we're already seeing it like Kerry Hyder, go get a 5 technique. He drafted a 5 technique, 29th overall pick, and LJ, who I still think could be pretty good. But yeah, that more than anything is how you end up in a bad place in this league, is not drafting well for an extended period of time.
Yeah. One of our Patreon guys wants me to ask you if you're looking forward to playing in Jacksonville next year.
Do they play in Jacksonville? That's where that game's at?
No, you're
I think
looking
it was
like.
Oh, me.
Dugar
Oh,
Shaq
me.
Griffin joke.
Oh, yeah. No, the answer is no. I'm looking forward to $45 million that Shaq got. That's the end of an era, man, of getting mistaken for Shaq.
I mean, next time you come to London, it's going to be interesting to see who the comparison will be.
Yeah, I mean they'll find one. Shaq ain't the first guy. I got called Waka Flocka a lot in high school, and like Asante Samuel before. Sherm was the first one, and then Shaq. I mean, there's always guys out there, man. The next black dude with dreads.
I think Lewis has dreads, doesn't he?
Who, Damien?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but no one thinks I'm that big. So,
no, that would be harsh.
Yeah, that one. That's a little different. But yeah, no, that's an end of a run, man. I wanted to do a story like that where I go out with the Griffin twins, and we just see how many people just legit buy us as brothers, like all three of us. Someone actually, I forget who it was now. This is gonna bug me. I was dang, most people don't know. So if you're at our training camp where we stand the tent to do the outside interviews, there's a pathway to the inside the VMAC from the practice facility, and the tent is directly like adjacent. So if you're standing on like the outskirts of the tent to ask a question, players can walk right by you, tap you on the shoulder if they need to. Bobby does it all the time to mess with people. Someone came right up behind me and was like, "Oh," and then he like yelled to, I think, one of the twins. He was like, "Hey, yo, bro, I thought this was one of your, man, I thought this was you." My bad. And it's just like, you could tell he wasn't just like making a joke. I think he was like a practice squad dude or something like that. It was somebody who ended up not making the roster. And it was just wild because I was like, man, are you guys just blind or what? Because like I said, this is after practice. All the players are wearing uniforms. I'm in a hoodie or whatever, like if nothing else, you should see that I'm not wearing a jersey. Like that's, you can tell it's not me, but it was always fun. I get my hair twisted up by the same lady that the Griffins do. So like, I see it. Like they do the same bun that I'm doing now. They dyed their hair after me. You can put that out there. I dyed mine first, then they dyed theirs. So like, now I got it, but I'm gonna just miss those guys in general, man. They were just so much fun. That's why it pissed me off. So many people are like, good riddance to Shaq, man. Shaq was really candid and really vulnerable and really fun. His whole 4 years in Seattle. I'm gonna miss that.
Also, something you might, I think we spoke to a couple of years ago, just after you raced Ben Arthur in a 40-yard dash, and now he's gone off to Tennessee. So does that you put you further ahead in the clubhouse lead for the 40 times in that media room as well?
Oh man, yeah, poor Ben. Shout out to him though, getting that job covering the Titans, man. I'm super proud of him, man. For getting that, he's gonna kill it. But yeah, no, man. I ran one day. We were playing flag football. I play flag football on Saturdays with a bunch of guys, and every once in a while, some D1 cats will come in. So we were just playing with this guy from like Florida State on Saturday, who just happens to be like from Seattle. But one day we were playing, and afterwards, I had Chris time me in a 40. So this is after running around for an hour. Chris had me at like 4.9, and it's just like, yeah, that's slow for like my weight. I'm like 5'8", $165, so that's not great, But man, it's not slow, Like that takes some pride in having some wheels. Yeah, I'm definitely. If they bring back the media combine, which they had probably before I got here, if they bring it back, oh, I'm all for it. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill the vert. I'm gonna kill. We do a standing, a broad jump, whatever, cone, three cone. Yeah, I'm gonna kill everything. I'll probably hit like 4.8 in that 40. It's gonna be unbelievable.
And speaking of killing it, I started out by saying how nervous I was to have such a guest of prestige, and obviously the Pedestrian podcast probably launched your media career as we were one of the first guys to get you on. I think that's undoubtedly true. But what's it been like in 2021? I'm flicking through the Around the NFL podcast, and Michael-Shawn Dugar's on there. I've listened to that show for 8 years, and there's Lindsay Rhodes and Fox and KJR, and it's been an incredible 6 months to a year. Like, take a victory lap. How's it been?
It's been a lot, man. Shout out to my girlfriend. She had to eventually, the day after the Rush story, not the day of, or excuse me, the day of the Rush story that it dropped, she had to like be my secretary. Like, when people were, because I was getting flooded with DMs and texts. Because when you're kind of in this business, I think there's like they can go online to the Seahawks site and they have all the media info. So
Mhm.
everyone just texts you from random numbers, like, "Hey, I'm this producer from random initials in Chicago. We want you on the show," right? So, and I had to just tell her like, "Hey, what do I have at 2? All right, put 2 down. Oh, Chicago. Oh, I'm doing Virginia at 3. ESPN Radio at 5." Like it was a lot, but it was very fun when I step back and look at it, because it was ultimately about the work. Like it wasn't about anything I did stupid or said, or like if I got into a Twitter spat with somebody and like, "Oh, we want to have you on because you're more easily accessible than the player you're arguing with." It was legitimately about, you guys did a good piece of journalism and we want to talk about the journalism you guys did. That's the cool thing, because you want that to pay off, and it helps that, shout out to Jason Jenks. Jenks is the ultimate introvert and he did literally 0 interviews after the story. So it made it look like I did a lot of work on my own, especially because my name is first on the byline. It is not. I definitely got to give a shout out, or it is first, but like, it doesn't mean I did more work. Me, Jason, and Mike Sando, it was legit team efforts, man. We talked so many hours. We went through every line of the story, nitpicking does this word imply this? Should we find another source on this? Should we pull this line? Like, it was a for real team effort, and it was a lot, man. We talked like we had at least 3 phone calls that were minimum 2 hours in length. For a story like that, for a triple byline. So to see everyone kind of rock with it, and for once, and this is where I really was willing to take the victory lap, is to see First Take or First Things First or Schefter or Rappaport, they have to hop on the phone after I report something. I spent my whole NFL career hopping on the phone when they tweet something or when they report something. I'm chasing down everything they do. I think it was in Tom Pelissero today said, "Oh, Sherm wants to come back." It's like, I'm not chasing that. Like, no, because I've already kind of written that. But like, that's a pleasure that no one will really understand unless you're in the business, is like having to just jump when Schefter says jump because he has this tweet, or when Rappaport says jump because he has this report. Now they had to jump. Now, granted, they didn't have to jump that far because they're them, but they had to. They had to get up there and talk about what we reported. And that was really fun. It makes it sound like I hate those guys. I don't, but they are the equivalent. I am the equivalent of the little guy, and they are the equivalent of the evil empire in our business. Whether that's fair or not, it's just what it is. So it is nice to have the little guy, quote unquote, get a victory in an NFL business. It's very hard to get this stuff, man. It's not like college or NBA. NBA is actually even hard too. Adrian Wojnarowski, Sham Charania, and like Chris Haynes, Ramona Shelburne, Brian Windhorst, they get everything. It's very hard. Mark Stein in the New York Times. It's hard to get into that business of like creating the news versus reacting to the news. So yeah, the one time we made it happen, very, very happy about that. Hope to do it like 10 more times, and just step into that lane.
And the next time it happens, just a bigger tag box on like Instagram and stuff. Just so it's got
Yeah, man. They need to my name a little bigger, man. It just little bigger font. That's the one place that kind of is the evil empire. Is the way Bleacher Report does stuff is just I've never really. I respected the company, especially the homie Master, who's over there, does good work. Does the Untold Stories series. Like, it's a great series. But like, it's not just them. I don't like the thing on Twitter where, let's say Shams tweets that LeBron tore his ankle or twisted his ankle. They will just pull a picture of LeBron, tweet that he twisted his ankle, and then tag Shams. Just retweet him. You didn't provide any additional information. All you did was you copied and pasted his tweet, attributed him, and added a photo that you got from Google. That is not reporting. That's just aggregation for the hell of it. There's an entire button built into this device for you to do the thing that you were trying to do. And I hate when people do that. And I think our companies get a little bit into that as well. But I understand it. Engagement sells. But I really think just retweet me. It's fine. If I break something, just read or quote tweet me or whatever to steal the information that I said without linking back too. No one does the link back. Like, no, add the link to my thing. No one cares about this unless you're a journalist, but like
No,
that's
Stu cares.
No, okay.
Stu cares a lot.
You've preempted my bin for this
No, you're a
episode
journalist
as well,
now, Stu. You're doing all these pre-draft
articles,
man.
What we're getting to in a minute, they're all pointless because we're not going to select anyone.
No, man. I told you I don't want to. I have to do a mock draft, and you've dug into. I think you wrote about a dude from Oregon State, and I was like, oh, okay. I might be able to just take him with my 250th pick. I would have no idea who that dude is if you didn't write about it. I have done no pre-draft research. Spoiler for anyone reading The Athletic.
That before we move on, that Oregon State one, his brother was on Last Chance U last year. If you watch that series, the Oakland one.
I've never seen Last Chance U.
The basketball one is on now. It's unbelievable.
Oh wait. No, I think I saw one season. There was a receiver, I think, and he ended up going to Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think he's in the league now. He's in the Eagles.
Chicago. He was.
Yeah,
Franklin.
John Franklin.
John Franklin
Let's go with
third.
that. Yeah, yep, him. I watched his season of, and it didn't do it for me. The show did not. I thought it was okay, but it didn't do it. I watched LeBron's high school his kids documentary on Netflix. That was okay, but I fell asleep on that too. The moral of the story: don't recommend a Netflix doc to me. I will watch it, but I will probably not enjoy it as much as you enjoyed it.
So on the draft, they've only got 3 picks: second round, 4th round, and 7th. There doesn't seem to be many ways of getting more. Well, obviously the trade back, but you're not really you're kind of going to miss out on guys doing that. Are they really just going to pick 3 players and just hope all 3 land?
Yeah, I asked someone in the know about that last week, Sunday maybe. I said, "Hey, do you really think John's is going to take 3 guys?" And he was like, "Yeah, he doesn't really have many choices. There's like the trade back route. You got to remember, the later you're trading the pick, the less valuable it is. There has to be someone worth trading up for. It's a lot easier in the first round. Doesn't mean that you can't trade up in the second round. Seahawks just did it. They traded up for the 48th pick, I think, to take Darryl. They traded up for DK as well, 64. I think they traded up for Michael Dixon. So, I mean, you can trade up for picks, but it's just harder because that means that the other team has to be willing to give up 2 picks for 1. And if you're trying to trade back at pick 56, okay, well, who's there that these guys really need? You really need quarterbacks and guys at premium positions. But I think they will only go into 3, but I'm with Adam. I like the idea of like you trade your 2nd round pick for JC Jackson. So now you have a 25-year-old corner who's nasty. I think since he entered the league, he's 2nd in interceptions behind Xavier Howard. He just gets his hands on a lot of passes, plays great man coverage at a time when it's very hard to play man because of all the crossing patterns and tight formations and bunch stuff they do. You use your 4th round pick and you go get like you just go get some random disgruntled defender because that's Seattle's like MO is finding guys who hate where they're at and they just find heaven's gates outside of VMAC. So you use that on like a defensive lineman or something like that or whatever, another receiver maybe. And then you shop your 7th round pick, which is what I'll probably do in my mock draft is you go get another skill guy or another quarterback. You know what? I'm a Coug, I'll be biased. Go call Jacksonville and say, give us Gardner Minshew. We'll give you our 7th.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. Because they're going to sign a veteran behind Trevor, I think. Like it makes more sense to do that. Like it makes more sense, honestly, for them to bring in like Blake Bortles behind Trevor. Assuming they take Trevor Lawrence and do something like that than it does to like have 26-year-old Gardner Minshew sitting behind 23-year-old Trevor Lawrence or whatever. So yeah, you call New England, say, hey, we want JC, we'll give him a multi-year deal. You call whoever else and say, we'll give you a 4th, give us your best pass, or your pass rusher who's pissed about his deal, or your receiver or whatever, and you call the Jags and say, give us Gardner, we'll give you a 7th. So now we have a backup quarterback that isn't Alex Magoo, and you roll that out. I'm with Adam. Punt on the draft.
Look, for my Seattle Enrons, we're giving our second round pick for Odell Beckham, and we're going all over it. We're going to say, Russell Wilson, here's Odell Beckham Jr., your Pro Bowl guy that you saw, and we're going to go crazy for a year. And then everyone can leave and just leave an absolute wreckage behind us, but we'll have a nice silver trophy there that we can celebrate when it all goes to shit. So that'd be great for me.
Imagine how
I'm not a journalist, so I get to talk shit like Odell Beckham, whereas you have to be vaguely serious, and even Stu writes articles, so he has to be, vaguely acceptable.
It's like four.
I can make anything work though. Like that's what our business is. I can make the Odell thing work. The downside is, I mean, if you think about it, this team had Doug and Golden and Jermaine, which pedestrian, sure, Dion kind of whiffed on that, but they were getting it done. It's not like Percy added a ton to the passing game. They felt they needed that splash though. So you can easily see a team with DK and Tyler and like, we need some more. Like I think you can see Russ saying they need some more. The problem with that is, and I told Adam this too, you can't keep getting Ferraris and driving the speed limit. You can't. You eventually got to put the pedal to the metal. And getting Odell it will be the equivalent of getting a Ferrari. And if you're just gonna run Chris 19 times a game, that is pointless. Yeah. That is a waste of. That's just not a waste of Odell's time. That's a waste of resources. Time. Yeah, like you're much better off trading that second round pick for a lineman. A really good one. Just stick him right there in the middle and plow through people for Chris. Like that's just a better use of the resource, whether I agree with it or not. It's better use of resources. Like that's. But I want you. Odell will be fun. I've only seen Odell live once, and he caught a crazy pass over Trey Flowers, and I was like, or Tedrick Thompson, and I was like, this is fun. He's real deal.
There's also there's chat in Boston today that's what New England have done this free agency splurge for, is because there's no intelligence really on this draft class because of shortened seasons and opt-outs and everything else. They just prime themselves to jump up and use all their stock in 2021 to go and get the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy it. And I remember people floating this when Jamal was traded. I don't buy that the 2021 class is totally devalued. There's still tape. Most teams played. I think only the Ivy League and the FCS didn't play.
FCS is playing now.
Yeah, they're playing now, right? So they're completely behind the eight balls. But for the most part, all the power conferences played. The guys who opted out because they have enough tape to prove. I think Jamar Chase is like a guy who opted out. It might go like sixth, right? Like opted out. So I think one of those corners who's high opted out as well. So I'm not entirely worried about that. And I think when you're talking about first round picks, all of those guys get scouted crazy. Now, these guys in the 6th and 7th round, are you watching some grainy tape of them? That's not that great. Yeah, probably. You go watch David Moore's college film. Yeah, it looks like you're watching a VHS, compared to watching, some of these other guys' tape. But the scouting is still going on. Honestly, what I think is going to happen, and maybe this is wishful thinking on my part, teams are going to realize we were spending entirely too much money on pre-draft. We could get so much shit done on Zoom that we were flying across the country to do before, that it's going to actually expedite the pre-draft process and make it better, not make it worse. Sure, is it nice to go see a guy running his underwear in the middle of nowhere in his college town? Perhaps. But if we can just watch that on tape, or not if we can watch it on tape, if now these college teams are using tracking data with the GPS things that they use in the NFL, who cares what he runs in his underwear after he's had 8 weeks to train? I know how fast his top speed is when he plays for Georgia Tech. So there's not even really a point for me to do that, right? Who cares what he can bench? I know how strong he is, with this advanced analytics we have. So I could see the whole draft process actually being more efficient, by all this. We're learning that with the players. The players are all like, wait a minute, we could have just met on Zoom all off season instead of coming to the facility for OTAs. Let's do that again. Efficiency is the name of the game in the NFL, and that's not just how to move the ball. That's legit in the pre-draft process too. Why are you flying scouts all over to who gives a fuck, Alabama and parts of Florida to scout a D2 guy? You gotta watch that guy on Zoom, watch his college tape, and then do a Zoom call with him. Boom. Now you know if he's a dickhead or not. So I think that I would imagine that the smart teams, it'll take some guys a while, but the smart teams are going to realize we were doing this in a very inefficient manner before evaluating all these prospects. We can get a lot more done sitting in rooms doing Zooms and having charts and tape than we are flying guys all over the country to watch guys run in their underwear and stuff like that.
So that lack of draft picks, is that why, apart from North Dakota State, we haven't seen John Schneider's name crop up at any of these pro days in Georgia or Clemson or Florida State or USC today? The only one I've seen him tab that is the North Dakota State one with the Ryan Pace conversation.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that he was at Trey Lance's joint. Yeah, perhaps. Because and John makes a really good point, like explaining why he was at Josh Allen's pro day. It was like, yeah, I was in Green Bay when Aaron Rodgers fell to us at 24 or whatever, and we were like, whoa, what do we do? We haven't done our homework, and then just took him. But you don't really have to worry about that with this crop when you're picking at 56, right? You're not trading anyone jumping back, into the draft. But even then, it was like, why are you even in wherever North Dakota, Fargo, I think maybe is the name of this, name of town. What are you doing there, John? Like that time on that, even if it was a private jet, which he probably took, like even that time to fuel the jet up and wait for it to fly there, like you really could have just watched the NFL Network feed of the pro day, and been, more efficient there, unless there was like other players there that you were scouting. But yeah, I think there's something to be said for this team just being more efficient with their evaluations. You still have to look at, have the same size board because you never know who falls to you at 56. And once you get into after the second round, you're really in the wild, wild west. But I mean, the draft is just done. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of wasted time. I forget what team it was last year. I think there were two, maybe the Rams and the Broncos, that didn't send anyone to the combine. They sent like maybe their head coach. That was it, and didn't send any of their scouts and stuff. And it was like, well, yeah, it's all on TV and stuff. And like, we already done scouted these guys at their pro days. There's all this tape. Why do we need to watch them run in their underwear, and poke and prod them for a medical report that we're just going to get faxed to us anyway from our doctors? Like, yeah, there's a much more efficient way to do the draft and be just as right or just as wrong. It's not like spending 11 months on the process makes anyone an expert. Seahawks spent all that time and still took Malik McDowell.
So Adam started by calling you Mr. 2021. How does the rest of 2021 for you covering this team look like? Because obviously there's still no camp dates of any sort. That seems to have cropped up in the news this week. I mean, Tyler, I think, said after the Rams game he doesn't really expect to be back in the VMAC till June, July. Is that kind of still the case, do you think? And you get to go back into that building and cover this team at whatever form of camp there is?
Yeah, I think with the vaccinations being more widely available, that'll help. I haven't got vaccinated yet. I plan to, though, for sure. Everyone get vaccinated. Do not be an anti-vaxxer. Please go. You're not going to turn into a zombie. Your face won't fall off. Your arm won't fall off. You're not going to die. All of these things that scare people.
Well, the first pod we did after I got jabbed, my internet fell out, so it clearly doesn't improve your Wi-Fi connection. So.
Yeah, I had mine last week. My 5G is shit. So
I really, whatever it takes, I want to be back in the building with those guys. I just think it's an invaluable tool to report. I mean, I was able to work around it a little bit this year, but like, you just learn so much about those guys. You pick up on things, and there's just something to be said for talking to someone face to face. That's part of the defense that a lot of the front office guys would use for the pre-draft process, especially when it comes to high picks. I want to look this man in his eyes. I can empathize with that. And because for my job too, it just like, I put it this way for Seahawks fans, they probably realize Nico Thorpe is a big ball of fun. We would never know that through Zoom. Mm-hmm. We would never see those spirited ping pong matches that he has literally every day that he had with Justin Coleman in 2018 and 2017. That were just a big ball of fun. We would have never saw how much fun Michael Bennett was. Never got the vibe for the basketball in the meeting rooms and all this stuff. Like, there's just so much you pick up on, being there and getting people to like see who you are and know your face. Like we joked with Joe Fan today that like Jamal Adams calls him Mr. Joe, or called him at least that once during Zoom. It's like, that's a really rare thing to get via Zoom, to be called. That's something ain't nobody got a nickname. I don't think anyone has a nickname in the media room, given to them by a player. Joe got one, virtually. That's hard to do. That person-person interaction is valuable, in our job, building those relationships and building those sources and really getting to know guys. So yeah, whether I got to get 2 shots, 1 shot, or 10 shots, I'm willing to get it to be back in the building. That's going to just change my coverage so much if I can make that happen.
And also make sure pickup game against Bobby Wagner and Tyler Lockett and everyone else more likely as well, doesn't it?
Oh man, yeah, for sure. I mean, that might still be able to happen regardless. I think the LA Fitnesses are all open up here. If Bobby and those guys want to give it a run, man, they don't understand. I've seen Bobby play basketball. I've seen Russell play basketball as well. And I see them all in the VMAC too. After practice, they have one in the facility that you can watch them play, which I do. So I've seen all of them play, and with the exception of Quandre. I've never seen Quandre play, but I've seen them play. I've seen most of the media play. I've played with Ben, who's leaving now, but I've played with Ben. Obviously, played with Chris Kidd. I played with Joe Fan. Played with his pickup team last year. I haven't played with Brady, but I played with Tim Booth. Yeah, I did play with Tim Booth multiple times. I played with Kevin Shockey at KJR. Adam Jude at the times I've played with. So I got a good feel for how everyone involved plays. And to my knowledge, Bobby's the best player on the team. So if I've seen your best and I've seen what else we have, I am well equipped to gauge how the game would go. Everyone dismisses what I'm saying as if they have any intel. They've never seen me play. They've never seen Bobby play. They're just assuming that all these guys are big and strong. They can play basketball. That's dumb. But DK Metcalf's big, strong, and fast. That does not, you guys know, that does not mean he'd be good at soccer. He could get out there and look like a fool. I don't care how fast he runs. You have to know how to play the game. It doesn't mean he can kick or whatever or dribble. Like you can't do it. Soccer's hard as hell, right? It doesn't mean just because you're big, strong, fast, that doesn't translate in every sport. So I can say that's the part where I get into this arguments about the hoop game. People are so dismissive of the intel I have. I have very unique intel. Like none of you guys have seen Joe Fan play. He can hoop. Like it's very real. Like Chris Kidd is very fast. It can hoop. It can dunk. Or at least get right up there. Chris is like 5'5". Think about that for a second. So I don't like how people just dismiss the knowledge that I have in this argument. You can say I'm gonna lose. Like even like someone like Kevin Shockey at KJR, he's also seen a lot of athletes play, so he knows as well. But a lot of people just tweet me like, Mike, you guys are tripping. These guys are like pro athletes. Sure, they're not pro basketball players. They don't care. You think Bobby can figure skate because he's fast and strong? No, he needs to know how to skate. It's the same thing, So that's, of all the things, that part really makes me upset. People are like, Mike, you'll lose just because of this. Like I've actually seen these guys play. I'm not just talking out my ass. I have some insight. You have none. You're telling me what you think. So I mean, it's a long rant, but
it would also be, I think, the most athletic article in the history of The Athletic. Like 5 media guys going up again. Forget Space Jam 2. That's the movie we need.
Oh man, that would do so well. And I do think we could lose, but Bobby thinks we'd lose like 11-1, and that is absurd. Like I'll tell, but I think I've told him. I think John Ursua thinks we'd lose pretty bad too. It's like anyone my height in this game too. No, I'm not afraid of you at all. Like Bobby, yes, Bobby's a monster. DK, monster. I legitimately get like why people are like, you guys have no shot. Fine. I look John Ursua in the eyes. Look Quandre Diggs in the eyes. Look Tyler Lockett in the eyes. Y'all ain't posting me up. You're not dribbling around me. Like I'm not. There's no fear there. I don't feel outmatched in basketball against those particular individuals. Now football, duh. No, I'm a peon. Basketball, level playing field. Let's do it. Like I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. And yeah, I hope we live stream it. I hope we sell tickets and donate it to like the charity of choice for the winners. Like make it a whole spectacle. I'm very ready for this.
Awesome. Ben, Adam?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Mike did preempt me on this one this week. There was a lot of cases of, I think one of the NBA guys broke a story and you shouted them out, Mike, last week, NFL story. And Ian Rappaport replied, quote tweeted it with, "This is true." Just as you said earlier, just retweet it. Just read, like, he's got the information. You have added anything, and he quote tweeted, "This is." I can't remember what it was. It's the NBA, one of the NBA guys.
Shams. Shams broke Jameis Winston
Yeah.
with the Saints.
And Rappaport, "This is true." I was like, just like, come on, man. He did it.
And I bet you his tweet got like 1,000 retweets. Rappaport's did.
Yeah.
Just saying this, adding literally nothing.
Yeah.
To the
he
tweet.
did it all weekend. I think Dan Cohen, one of our Patreon guys, noticed me losing my cool with it by Sunday night. But yeah, it's the word. He's always 20 seconds late, and he's always, "This is true." It's just, come on, man. Adam?
I got 3. The first one is, as it is combine season, no one's height in the world has ever been measured in 4 digits. Like, what the fuck is 6051 for someone's height? That doesn't mean anything to anyone on God's green earth. 6051. Help me, because
what is that? Like 6'5" and a fourth?
I think that's what it is. But you just said 6'5" and a quarter inch. That makes sense to human beings.
Yes,
6051 doesn't mean a thing to anyone. And that is the first thing that could get so in the bin, because it drives me. There's a guy, I'm not going to call him out. There's a guy on Seahawks Twitter who does people's measurables, and he does it all the time as if like this is a language that humans understand. No one needs that. Let's just get to normal, something we can digest. So that's one.
That's a funny one.
The second one is with the Russell Wilson story, people talking about reasons for this and that and whatever. There might be one guy out of 100 who has a credible reason for blaming Sierra for Wilson wanting to leave. But I guarantee 99% of these people that are saying you have to look at the wife are the same guys that video themselves in their trucks doing ranting videos about something political. They have certain penchants for 2 flags to do with America. I'm almost certain about that. And I mean, we see right through you. Like, give Russell Wilson enough credit for being his own man, and he can leave without, or have these thoughts without the view of his wife pushing him one direction. And B, show her some respect, for goodness sake, and not push it in that direction, because we can see right through that. And my third one, you can all come back on both of those if you want. My third one is actually at our guest Michael-Shawn Dugar, because 2 weeks ago I sent Mike the perfect picture of a Nando's bag, and on the bag it says "secure the bag" on Deliveroo, and that is Mike's catchphrase. And I sent him it was perfect shot. And I've been waiting all the way through free agency for Mike to just quote tweet something with my Nando's bag picture, and crickets. And so, the floor's yours to defend yourself, Mike.
I need someone to. I'm trying to think if anyone's done what I think is secure in it since then. That's a good, because that was after the first wave when the real money's being thrown out.
Oh, it's my fault.
No, I did not. I think. I need someone to really. I'm trying to think.
I mean, Kenny Golladay got $72 million. US dollars.
I think it might have been after the Kenny. The Kenny Galladay thing broke while I was doing something. I might have been playing flag football actually.
I think you were, because we were texting around that time.
Yeah, because I play on Saturdays at like noon. Because I remember telling the homie like, "Hey, Kenny Galladay just signed for 18 a year." Yeah, I was. So yeah, I wouldn't even. I just looked at it and yeah. Now I do need to use that. I want to use it. I actually might use it today, honestly. But not for sports. Issa Rae, the creator of the show Insecure on HBO, she just signed like a big multi-year deal for like to create TV shows. It's like reported like an 8-figure deal. I might use that. I need to. It's so perfect. I wish I'd have had it at the start of free agency, because it would have been perfect for Shaquille.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the time I'd have used it.
But yeah,
is it on me?
Yeah. Well, let's want to come back on the Sierra thing.
Sierra stuff is like, I actually did. The only person who I heard make a good point about anything involving Sierra and Russell, and this was before our story came out, was Bomani Jones on ESPN, which no surprise that he actually had a decent point. I
Yep.
think him, Pablo Torre, Mina Kimes are some of the better people, talking heads on about anything, but particularly sports. He made the point that like people like Russ and Tom Brady are married to women that are used to having control in their respective arenas. So like if they want something, it's not very difficult for them to say I want the thing and get the thing. So like he theorized that like that type of energy can rub off.
Mhm.
Like if you're Giselle and you want something, it happens for you. There's not any like salary cap or trade provisions or contracts that are preventing you from getting the thing, whether you need more talent around you or a certain type of food or an accommodation of some sort, right? Like same thing for Sierra. I think Bomani used the example of if she wants better backup dancers, they just go get them, right? They don't just say we can't afford new backup dancers or the label makes it happen. So there may be something to the idea that like if you want this, go say you want it. So I don't necessarily think I don't know how accurate that is. I actually don't think it's very accurate at all. If this is in the Russell's case, but I thought that was like a worthwhile way of connecting the spouses to the situation without just saying your wife runs you, which is very, like you said, Adam, it's very, very lazy. Again, I still don't think Bo's take is correct in that regard, but I do think it was interesting and not just like totally demeaning to because what most people do is they like talk about in one way it's like the wife comes from a place of power, but that's like a little bit more like controlling, and then in Bo's example it's a little bit more like power that you've like legitimately earned. I guess I don't know, it's a little different, but I think I'm gonna put, I don't know the name of the person, it's a thing that happened today and it was brought to my attention by the homie who covers the Bills for ESPN. His name is Marcel, and he quote tweeted some radio hosts in Buffalo who were talking about how they like their toast, which I don't know the full extent of the conversation. It's very weird, but they were like, you cook toast to a certain, color, and they were using the skin tones of Black women to describe their toast. Like one dude was like, the host, I don't know his name. I'm gonna try to find it. It looks like he got fired. So let me see. Rob Lederman, maybe. Let's go with him because he just got terminated. Was like, yeah, I like my toast like more on the Serena Williams side. Or no, I don't like my toast on the Serena Williams side. I'm more of like a Halle Berry. He was like, I like my toast, I need a little mulatto in there. And then one of the women hosts on the show was like, okay, what about like a Gayle King shade? And it's just really gross. It's a cringeworthy clip. Looks like someone from there got canned. So they're not only did they get canned, they're in the bin as well. Because that's just like, I shouldn't have to explain to adults why you don't use the skin tones of anybody, but definitely, not Black people to like describe your food. I don't describe anything really. Like they're human beings, like just say you don't like your toast burnt. You don't have to include Serena Williams in this analogy here. So yeah, the name of the show is
The Morning Bull.
Morning Bull. Yeah, the Morning Bull. Yeah, which is appropriately named for sure.
The funny thing is for you guys won't get this, but I heard the guy's name and my heart sank because Rob Lederman is quite clearly a Jewish guy. And I've spent the last couple of podcasts, with Doug and KJ bringing up my faith and talking about how there's been discrimination against and how I've dealt with it versus how, they've dealt with their situations in the league. And then there's people in my faith just saying disgusting things like that. And then it kind of just makes it all just the circle just come back full and like we go again with this stuff. And I don't know, like it just seems, there's the basketball player who, used the horrific slur about Jewish people, the Miami, and I just
Myers Leonard. Yeah, no, throw him. You guys probably put him.
Yeah, we did him. We did him. But then like my guys are doing this, and I don't know. It just feels like everyone's just going full circle and just. I know, like this is a fun segment or whatever, but it's depressing as hell. I've got to say.
Yeah, I mean, no one's exempt from saying stupid shit. I mean, that's definitely like something we should all like acknowledge because like it could be a Myers Leonard, it could be a Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
It could be whoever. It could be this guy on this show. Yeah, it's a white dude. I'm looking at the picture of the show. But yeah, no, it's oh man, it's so bad. That was really cringeworthy. I mean, Myers Leonard was too. Like his excuse that like, okay, here, this is my last rant for you. The this is not who I am as an apology is so bad. Especially because you're only apologizing because we caught you.
Yeah.
Like that, you're not apologizing because you said the thing. You're apologizing because you got caught saying the thing. Like that implies you say the thing when we ain't around. Now the dude from the Mariners is a perfect example. It was like, I think, I don't know if he said this is not who I am. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I do remember that, and this is not Larry's fault necessarily, but Larry Stone of the Times had wrote in his column after. It was a good column. But at the top of it, he's like, the Mariners need to get rid of this guy, in part to prove that that's not who they are. And it's like, no, not necessarily. This is who you are, Mariners. Because this guy has had a lot of power in your organization for years, and he's elevated and he's not just said this stuff once and it just happened to get recorded. No, he says this stuff all the time, right? You can even read Ryan Divish had a good timeline after. It's like, no, his sentiments are well known, not just with him around baseball. He just said them in public. He said the quiet part out loud. It was like when Mike Gundy said that we got to get these kids back on the field to fund the state of Oklahoma. And we're just like, oh, you mean like these guys actually generate money, like, so we should pay them, right? And it's like, no, said the quiet part out loud. So like so with the Mariners, it was like, no, to fix this is not firing the Mather dude or whatever to prove it's not who you are. It's acknowledging that he is who you are, acknowledging how you got there, and then fixing that. It's not just saying, no, that's not us. Yeah, it is. He's the president. He's been there for a long time. Right?
I feel like
that's what Myers, but whoever.
In that situation, I think one of the first conversations you and I had about this whole thing, Mike, a year ago was Deshaun Jackson himself said some abhorrent stuff, but I think you quite rightly explained to me that, from an educational standpoint, he genuinely went out of his way to apologize and not give a bullshit apology, but he actually went and educated himself. And in a way, I'm quite cool with that, because you can't necessarily change what people have learned, but you can certainly change what they do about it in the future when they're found out.
Yeah, and contrition is easy to like really spot, genuine contrition, like you really can. But some stuff is just like, it's inexcusable. Like as much as I think Deshaun Jackson was like legitimately ignorant, like he is still a grown ass man. He quoted Hitler.
Yeah, Farrakhan.
Like, Farrakhan quoting Hitler, like, full stop. Like, you're a grown ass man. If you just don't know not to do that part, like that's the same thing with Myers Leonard. Like, I didn't know what that meant. Okay, what did you think it meant then, Myers? Because you said it like you knew it meant something. Right? You didn't just say offhand. You said like you knew it meant something, and that's the same effect of like, that's not really who I am. I would just no. Yes, it is. Admit this is who you are. Because until you admit that, you can't fix like being an addict. You got to get in the room, be like, yo, my name is John, I'm an addict. Then you can fix yourself being an addict. You get in there and be like, yo, I'm John, I kind of drink sometimes, but it's not that serious. You're not going to fix anything. The same thing when you say some stupid stuff like this dude did, or the guy who said the thing at the baseball announcer who like apologized while calling a home run. That was wild. Like, you can't just get up there and be like, this does not represent who I am. And stop saying you a God-fearing person every time you apologize, too. It's like, I am a Christian person, blah, blah, blah. I think the guy who said the racist thing and blamed his blood sugar, said he's like a Christian guy. It's like, we don't care how much you love God, bro. Like, apologize because you said something racist.
That's not as good an excuse as you guys think it is when people are like, I really fear God. It doesn't.
It's the
not at all, man.
It's the ease, comfort, and confidence. It's like the Mayo thing and the Myers Leonard thing. Like the ease he had in saying it, the confidence he had in saying it. He clearly has used that before. And the Mariners thing is it's a joke, because as I think a lot of people said, a lot of people have given up on that team. And then you have that just to go, okay, just like pushing people further and further away from a team which really should be bringing people in the door, shouldn't it, Mike? More than running people away. But one more thing on that. I spoke to you on Instagram a couple of days ago about Judas and the Black Messiah, the Oscar-nominated film from the Lucas brothers and a whole host of people. Fred Hampton's someone who isn't it's not really crossed my radar. I was talking to one of my friends the other day about him. Like, he's someone, I messaged you, he's someone I want to dive in on and learn more about and read more about. But the main thing I could think, one of the main things after watching that film is like the shit he did at 20, 21 years of age is sort of on the same level as the stuff that Kaepernick has been blackballed for 25, 35, 40 years ago. And he was only, 5, 6 years older than Fred Hampton. It just kind of brings everything home. The whole conversation around Kaepernick is just brought home because that was happening 40, 45 years ago with someone even younger than Kaepernick.
Yeah, Tupac has some points about that. Like the time to be a fighter and rebellious is like, and you in your 20s. And when you are young, that's when you got it. Because when you get older, you just get defeated. Like you just lose it because you've been fighting for so damn long. But like, yes, I saw Judas and the Black Messiah, and I recently watched The Banker with Anthony Mackie and Samuel Jackson, which is about they're in the 60s and they couldn't buy property, and they could buy property, but they couldn't buy commercial property and stuff because they were Black. So they had to like buy all this stuff, but use a white guy as the face of the thing and have him take all the meetings and sign all the papers and do the stuff. And in both of those films, and in a lot of films that are like set in a certain time period, they illustrate a very important point that I want people to get. And this will be a heavy ending to the show, but it's not that just in America the system wasn't designed for us. I mean, us as in Black people. It was specifically designed against. And that's a very big distinction there. Where it's just like, when we were making laws about how to get loans for a crib, we just really didn't consider Black people wanting houses. No. They took that a step further and was like, okay, we actually did consider it. And now here is this law that you cannot give a loan to a Black person. That's a totally different level of setting the people back. And in The Banker illustrates that. And in the Fred Hampton film, which is also about Bill O'Neill, it illustrates that as well. It's not that just Black people had a hard time fighting for rights with the Panthers. It's that the government actively sought to stop them from doing so. That's a huge difference. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot harder. Like if the hill is very steep that I'm trying to walk up, yeah, that's very hard to walk up a steep hill. If you are pushing me in the stomach while I'm trying to walk up that hill, it's much harder to get up the hill. We were being pushed in the stomach. So I think like movies like that, I'm a huge movie guy, so I've been watching a bunch of them. But I do think that's a very important distinction with all of this, whether that's getting hired as a journalist, whether that's for a lot of spaces for women, Black women, whatever. It's not just that a system is not designed with you in mind to succeed. A lot of these are designed with you like intended to fail, which is a lot harder to overcome, like exponentially more harder, I think, when you really think about
it. Yeah. Anything else, Adam?
I think, as always, I'm looking at the clock and we're 2 hours in and we covered it all, and just always so grateful for the superstar's time these days as he takes himself up the ranks.
Hey, man, I appreciate you guys, man.
I do. We'll have to get you on the week after we get Sherm next time.
Oh, man, I want to be on with that. I'm still wearing my Zelensky bracelet.
Nice.
Wear it every day. I wore my hoodie. My hoodie's kind of worn. I wore it too much.
I've got two, and they're both worn.
Yeah, that's what I should have. Maybe I need to get it. I don't know if you guys still sell them. If somebody still has them. Maybe the family does.
I haven't got any hoodies. I've got t-shirts. Yeah,
I need just more because I wore it to play basketball in, work out, and once you do that with stuff, you can only wash it, and it's white. Well, whatever. Yeah. I appreciate you guys, man.
No, man. So massive thanks to everyone who listened and downloaded and commented on last week's pod. It was a wild hour or so me and Adam spent with one of the people we've always wanted on the pod, and Doug Baldwin. We've touted that to the hill and back, and then back up the hill again over the past week. So massive thanks to anyone who gave the time to listen to that.
Mike, we're still waiting for your story about Doug versus Revis, which you floated that you might be writing about.
I need to. Yeah, because I went back and looked when Doug made the claim, and Doug's correct. He had a really good game, but I don't think it's the game he thought he had. I'm doing so much free agency stuff these days and mock drafts with 3 picks that it's slowing me up. But I mean, that's like a good, like, fun summer thing. Because he made that very clear. Like, I destroyed this guy, and I was like, did you?
Murdered him is what he said. But and also thanks to you as well for giving us a shout out on your much higher platform, as we said over the weekend on Man to Man podcast. It was massively appreciated as well. Where can people catch your socials, your writings, and the brilliant pod you do with Chris Kidd as well?
Oh yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Mike Dugar. That's just the way I pin everything to the top. Like, my stories are in my bio and on my author page. My podcast is always pinned to the top of my profile on Twitter. So like, my Twitter is essentially a one-stop shop. So at Mike Dugar, you can find quite literally everything I do on there.
If you want to get involved in the podcast, Patreon's still open, patreon.com/the pedestrian podcast. Massive thanks to all the guys on there: Dan Cohen, Nick Wright, Dave Sayers, Will Travers, Bergen Klasper, don't forget some names, Harry Craig. Should have got the thing open. Everyone else, we do massively appreciate it. We had a couple more. Max Lang from the German Seahawks jumped on last week, and Maura Dooley as well from 710 ESPN pledged their support. I think that was more to get some of the audio from the dog chat more than anything else. But we appreciate it all the same. Until next time, this has been the Pedestrian Podcast.
Go Hawks. Cool.
Nice. All right, I gotta run, but appreciate you guys.
Yeah, Wilson just got traded, Mike. You need to get writing.